Namaste everyone. Hope you're all having a nice, happy and healthy sort of day. And today I'm going to bring you another story from Shiva Purana. So if you have seen my previous sessions, I have been telling you stories from this holy scripture Shiva Purana. And in one of my previous stories, I talked about how an enormous power took shape as Parashiva, and how that Parashiva settled down in Kashi or Varanasi. And in another story, I also talked about how Parashiva manifested as Rudra. So today I'm going to talk about how Rudra settled down in Kailasa. And there is quite an interesting short story about that. And it begins with a pious Brahmin called Yajnadatta. And Yajnadatta, as I said, he was very pious, very righteous, very duty bound. He was a Vedic scholar, and he was an expert in conducting yagas, yajnas, and he was highly respected. And he had a young son, and his name was Gunanidhi. Gunanidhi was actually a very befitting son to his father, because at a very young age he learned the Vedas and the Upanishads, and he could even assist his father in major yagas and yajnas. So, however, unfortunately, by and by, Gunanidhi sort of fell into bad company. He knew that he was falling into bad company, and he was getting sucked into this world of betting and gaming and a path of adharma. But he could not really control himself, and probably if he had told somebody that he needed help to get back on track, someone would have helped him, his mother or father. But Gunanidhi just kept going in the direction that his fellows took him, and soon became a seasoned, full-fledged gambler. Gambling, as we all know, is just luck. So he won a few times, which encouraged him to gamble more, and he lost more, and then even then he gambled more, because with this thought in his head that if he gambles more, he can win at some point in time. It's like going to a casino and planning to win, and somehow nobody comes out a winner there. And the same thing happened with Gunanidhi. He kept gambling and gambling, and kept borrowing money from everyone, and it reached a point where he even started stealing from his own parents. And it even reached a point where once he had to steal his father's precious golden ring, which his father had kept very carefully, and he sold it off to a shop. And that is when his ill luck began, sort of. One day Yajnadatta was just going by, and he happened to chance upon a man who was wearing the exact same finger ring that he had. So he stopped that man and he said, "You are wearing my ring. How is that? Did you steal it from me?" Somehow Yajnadatta also lost his temper, because he was very sure that it was his ring. And that man laughed at Yajnadatta. He said, "Are you accusing me of stealing your ring? You should be actually looking closer home. It's your son who stole it from you and sold it to your shop. Because I don't know why you haven't realized. Your son is a big-time gambler, and his ways are anything but Brahminical or Sattvic." Now Yajnadatta was so angry, and fortunately or unfortunately, Gunanidhi happened to know about this incident. He happened to know that his father had learned about him selling off his precious ring, and Gunanidhi was scared. He did not know what to do. So he decided to just run away. The wrong choice, running away from problems is never going to solve anything. But for Gunanidhi, that seemed like his only option. So he did not even come home to collect his things. He just started running and ran into a forest, and he walked and he walked. He didn't even have proper footwear. His clothes became tattered. He was hungry. He was thirsty, but there was no way to stop, because it was a very dense forest, and he was very afraid that some wild animal would kill him if he even rested. So after a while, he heard some bells, temple bells. He got very encouraged. He thought, oh, if I'm hearing the bells, there must be some humanity. So he followed the sound of the bells, and when he went there, there was like a congregation of people. So Gunanidhi was really relieved, especially when he saw all these savories and sweets and fruits that was kept in front of the idol, and it was an idol of Shiva. And he asked somebody who was going by very hurriedly, what's happening? And that man said, oh, you know what, we have done the Shivaratri Jagarane, and now we are going to do the Shiva Sahasranama, and then after that we are all going to sleep because we haven't slept for more than 24 hours. And Gunanidhi felt very happy. He thought, my God, if I just wait for all these people to sleep, I can just take all that Naivedya, all that is offered to the god, and just, escape into the forest and have a nice feast, and then we'll figure out what to do. So he waited. So while waiting, he just listened to the Shiva Sahasranama that was being chanted. And, since also as a young boy, he was a scholar, right? So he quite enjoyed the Sahasranama. He focused, he listened. And then after that, when everybody slept, he went near the idol. And there, the deepa that they had lit was about to burn out. But he knew that if the deepa burns out, he wouldn't be able to collect what he wanted. So what he did was he just took some pieces of cotton which was lying here and there, and he made a wick, put it in there, put some oil, and he lit the deepa. And then he gathered very quickly as much of the food as he could that was offered to Lord Shiva as Naivedya, and he picked up all that and he started tiptoeing. See, sometimes, when you do not want to make any noise is when you make the most noise, right? When you are trying to quietly go somewhere not to disturb someone, you will knock over a chair, or, you will bang into something. The same thing, happened to Gunanidhi. In English, there is a phrase for it called the Murphy's Law. When you precisely don't want something to happen, that just happens. Nobody knows why that happens. So the same thing happened to Gunanidhi. What he did was, while he was tiptoeing, he tripped upon somebody's foot. And the minute he tripped upon that man's foot, that man got up screaming, and he saw Gunanidhi with a piece of cloth and all the savories, filled in. And he woke up everyone, the thief, and Gunanidhi started running. He was already so exhausted, poor man, with all the walking and running in the forest. And now with people following him around, he ran further, but he knew his legs or his lungs could not take him any further. So he soon collapsed with the people following him. He did not just collapse as in faint, but he just died. He was so exhausted, he was so tense, he was, he could no longer, survive with that sort of fatigue and exhaustion. So now people just left him, and they did the last rites to the best of their efforts, because they did not know where he had come from. So in Hinduism, we believe that when somebody dies, depending on whether they have accrued good karma, which is punya, or bad karma, which is papa, and either Yama's assistants, the Yamadutas, come and take them to hell, or Vishnudutas or Shivadutas come and take them to Vaikuntha, or the heaven, in other words. So now Yamadutas came, of course. What Gunanidhi hadn't done anything so great in his life that he had accrued good karma or punya. So the Yamadutas went, and when they were just about to capture his soul and take that to Yama's abode, Shivadutas came there, and they stopped the Yamadutas and they said, no, stop. Lord Shiva has told us that we have to take him to Shivaloka. And the Yamadutas were very surprised. They said, why? This man hasn't done anything good in his life. But Shivaduta said, look, during his last hours, he has actually listened to Shiva Sahasranama with intent and with focus, and he has also lit a deepa for the Lord on the day of Shivaratri. So I think he has accrued some punya. We have to take him to Shivaloka. And when they took him to Shivaloka, Lord Shiva decided to give Gunanidhi another chance at life. So in his next life, Gunanidhi was born as the king of Kalinga. and he was named Dama. But in this life, he did not falter from the path of righteousness. He was a good king. He was, very benevolent. He was sympathetic, and he ruled well. And he also, made all the temples flourish. He made sure all the temples had enough funds to light the deepas throughout the night and to feed the hungry. So in his rule, people were extremely happy. So of course, eventually he died of old age, and then he got another life. And in that life, he got his birth was as the king of Alakapuri. So even in this life, he was extremely righteous and great king, but he went a step further. So what he did was, he also took up the path of spirituality. So he decided one night, when he was in his palace, that he needed something more than the life of a king. He needed to see Lord Shiva himself. So he entrusted his kingdom to his ministers and made sure everything was going to go well. And he left for tapas. So he did tapas for many, many years, and eventually Lord Shiva appeared before him. And Lord Shiva appeared before him along with Parvati. Now this Lord of King of Alakapuri tries to look at Shiva, and he's so bright. Lord Shiva is so bright, he could not see anything, and he just closed his eyes and he said, Lord Shiva, my lifelong desire has been to see you, and now that you are here, I can't see you. You have to grant me the vision, the power to see you. Shiva smiled and granted him enough strength and power to see him. So now, the moment the king of Alakapuri opened his eyes, he saw Parvati. And then at first he thought, who is this woman who is so beautiful? And after that, he looked at Lord Shiva, and he looked at Parvati again, and a bit of a jealousy crept into him. He thought, why is she close to my Lord? I should be the one who should be close to him. And in that jealousy, in those mixed feelings, he kept staring at Parvati. Now Parvati is a very powerful goddess herself, right? She got very irritated. She cursed him immediately. She said, may you lose the vision in your left eye for staring at me in such a wicked manner. And now Shiva smiled at Parvati and said, no, you know what, this man does not mean any ill. He's such an ardent devotee of mine. He just got momentarily angry with you because you are closer to me than him. Please pardon him. Then Parvati smiled and said, okay, I can't take back the curse that I have already bestowed. From now onwards, he will be called Kubera. Kubera means someone with a mutilated face because he doesn't have the left eye. And then Lord Shiva said, may you also become the king of kings, the king of treasury, and you rule over not just the people but also the Yakshas and Kinnaras. You become the leader to the Yakshas and the Kinnaras. And you settle down in Alakapuri itself. And what, the king of Alakapuri was overwhelmed. He said, God Shiva and Goddess Parvati, I couldn't have asked for anything more from you both, but I am going to take the liberty and ask you for a little more. Lord Shiva, I may have everything, but I want you to stay closer to me. Can you please grant me that boon? Can you please settle down closer to Alakapuri? And then Rudra or Ishvara said, definitely it can be done. I am so pleased with your prayers. I will settle down in Kailasa, which is very close to Alakapuri. And so eventually Vishwakarma, the architect of the gods, builds this beautiful palace for Shiva and Parvati to live in. And that's how Ishvara came to settle down in Kailasa. And in the meanwhile, Kubera, who is the treasurer of all wealth, lived in Alakapuri, ruling over Yakshas and Kinnaras, who are heavenly bodies. And Kinnaras are musicians, and Yakshas are the treasure keepers who help Kubera keep the treasure. And that brings us to the end of the story. So I hope you enjoyed the story as much as I did. It's a nice, simple, short story, but now if we look at the story a little more deeply, so many things become evident, right? So there is one direct message here, which is the power of prayer, the power of faith. See, Gunanidhi was such a sinner. He hadn't done anything good in his life. But still, just before he died, he did this simple act of listening to Shiva's, Shiva. He became a part of Shiva Puja, and he also lit the lamp. And Lord Shiva, just for that one small act, gave him a new lease of life. He gave him a better life. And when he did better in that life, he gave him even a better life. And finally, he even settled down next to Gunanidhi. So, what is this power of prayer? What is this faith? Why do scriptures repeatedly try to convince us about the power of faith in prayer? See, just for a moment, imagine, your best friend or your parents or one teacher who believes in you and who, supports you in all your endeavors. Doesn't that give you a lot of strength? Don't you feel, okay, let me just take up this task. Even if I need help, one of these people, that I trust are going to help me out. So to have faith in someone gives us strength. The same way, if we have faith in this all-powerful God, how much stronger are we going to feel? So that is what the scriptures are trying to tell us. Faith makes us stronger. Prayer makes us stronger. So that is the message that the story is trying to convey. But you also look at the prayer from another angle. So when you sit down to pray, when you sit down to chant, when you sit down to even listen to the Vedic or the Upanishadic chants, and if you focus, so what happens? It improves your powers of concentration. It improves your power of focus. You can you calm your mind. You can grasp better. So the brain, just like any other part of the body, is also a muscle. So when you meditate through chanting or through prayers, you strengthen your brain. You can focus better. So there is no contradictory message when some scripture tells us that the power of faith gives you the strength to go about your life. So it's one and the same thing. When your brain works at its maximal capacity, you do feel sort of powerful, right? When you can study well and retain what you have studied, or when you can reproduce what you have studied, it just makes you feel stronger. So that is the power of faith. That is the power of concentration, the focus. So with that, the story concludes, and I hope you all are going to have a fantastic evening, and namaste.